will manage the discussion.
Yes, yes.
And then after close, and I will send right away by email the summary to you.
Okay, very fine. And I can manage the presentations as well. This is
thank you very much, because unfortunately I cannot join after that because of family matter.
Yes, I can understand. So,
hello everyone.
Mukti.
Hello
again, Mukti.
Hello.
Very nice to see
meet you again.
Enrico, we have here Enrico, and we have Martin Luik. Yeah. And then here, difficult, Gwenaile Jos.
Yes. So I think the politeness of the kings is to be precise in time. And
yeah. So how many times per speaker? 15?
I will explain it. Okay, I take the
I will hear from you.
I will transfer it to you.
Yeah.
So welcome to everybody. It is the session number 31 about geopolitical economy in connection with the non-aligned movement. My name is Annamaria Artner, and I am from Hungary. I am an economist, political economist, and working for an Institute of World Economics at the Research Center in Budapest. I will manage the first part of the session, and then Tulus Tambunan, a professor of economics at Trisakti University, Jakarta, Indonesia, will take the floor and manage the conversation and the discussion. I would like to shortly introduce our presenters to everybody. Asikin, Mukti, Zaenal. Sorry if my pronunciation is not perfect. Mukti, Asikin, Zaenal is a PhD candidate at Satya Vakana Christian University. It's a private Christian university, Indonesia, and he is interested in development studies. His topic will be the lessons from cooperatives in Israel and Indonesia. The third speaker of ours will be Hamitouch Youcef, who is not here yet, but I hope he will arrive.
Not yet.
Researcher, Faculty of Political Science and International Relations at Algeria number 3 University. This is the name of Algiers number 3. This is the third university which was founded by the state, as far as I know. His topic will be the competition between China and France over economic issues in Algeria. And last but not least, my compatriots, Peter Clemenchit and Alexander Zoltai will present, I don't know if together or in an order, and shared, I don't know, but we will see. Both are researchers at Pallas Athénée Geopolitical Institute in Hungary, and the research topic of them, as far as Peter is concerned, is geopolitics, international relations, and Southeast Asia. And Alexandra is a PhD student at Pécs, another Hungarian town, and her topic is, in fact, the Belt and Road Initiative on the ASEAN countries. So much about the short presentation, or a short introduction. And as you know, we have got an order of presentations, and in that I am the first, and therefore I would like to present my study, or an outline of my study concerning the situation of the position of the non-aligned movement in the geopolitical economy. And if you don't mind, I share my screen. Please wait a minute. Okay.
Professor Annamaria.
Yes.
How many minutes per speaker?
Oh, thank you very much. 15 minutes per speaker.
Oh, 15. Okay.
In order to have enough time for the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. And now I begin my presentation. Can you see my?
Yeah, I can see.
Yes.
Is it okay? So you
can see
the full screen.
Yes.
Okay. So as I I already said the presentation discusses the non-aligned movement in the framework of the ongoing change of the world system. And the first slide has a figure which is to symbolize the development of the non-aligned movement in the light of the geopolitical economic changes in the world. Well, other events could have been included, of course, but from my point of view, these are the most important or symbolic ones. I don't want to discuss all this event. I just would like to ask you to have a glance on that figure, and you will realize that on the upper part, in that upper part of the slide, above the timeline, you can see some important geopolitical events which influence the organization, the self-organization of the developing countries in one way or another. From these, I think the most important ones were the economic crisis in the 70s, and then the debt crisis, which began with the insolvency of Mexico. And also it was important that about that time, the reform process in China was launched. And last but not least, also in that time, a new institutionalization of the imperialist power began to be formed, and which happened in 1976 with the formulation of the G7. At about that time, I would say that we can speak about some kind of defeat of the original, but at least temporary. And under the timeline, you see the events which were important from the viewpoint of this self-organization of the developing countries or the global south. Under this part of the slide, you see the changes of the economic strategies of the developing countries. Of course, it's a generalization, but nonetheless, this was the main course of changes from an inward-looking development strategy through import substitution, through fights between internal forces and between internal and external forces during the period of the crisis. They arrived to an export-oriented policy, which led finally to a reconciliation. It's an expression of Samir Amin, and dependence again. So we are here at that stage, but for the first part of this analysis, we can say that due to the successes of the Soviet Union after the Second World War, in the Second World War, and after that, and the imposing socio-economic development of Eastern Europe, as well as the collapse of colonial system, the revolutions in many countries, including China, the anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist, and potentially socialist forces grew enormously and represented the overwhelming majority of the humankind. And therefore, my first conclusion here is that under the 70s, a breakthrough towards a post-capitalist era seemed to be possible. However, as we know, it didn't happen. And it is only just a symbol of the problematic. This is about the per capita income of the different income groups formulated by the United Nations Development Program. So, and from the World Development Indicators, you see that at the beginning, until the outbreak of the financial crisis, there have been some kind of catching up, or if not catching up, there was no increase in the differences between the different income groups. However, after that, there was an increasing differentiation even within the group of not high income countries, and as we see, particularly the low income countries, which are lagging behind. So here the conclusion came that catching up within the framework of the capitalist world system is an illusion and can only be an apology of the comprador elites. The question now can be raised: why did this breakthrough not happen? In connection with that, I would just give some deficiencies of them, which I think can explain this absence of the change of the world. So first of all, I would mention the conflict between India and China over their border, Arunachal Pradesh. This conflict, as you know, began in 1958. So due to this conflict, China didn't take part at the Belgrade conference. And also because China had this initiative, this Belgrade conference, was at all manipulated by India and Yugoslavia. Also, he was absent from this conference as China had another perception concerning the coexistence. Mao and Chiang Kai believe that it is valid only for the international connections of socialism-oriented countries, but it is impossible within aligned countries, hostile countries. So China joined the non-aligned movement only as an observer in 1992, given that China is a member of the United Nations Security Council. This approachment to non-aligned movement can meaningfully increase the influence of the non-aligned movement in the international forum. And therefore, my third conclusion is that China can have achieving the goals of NAM. The second deficiency of the NAM movement, which I would mention, is the negativism and rent-seeking behavior of the elite of developing countries. This negativism of the elite changed. This negativism roots in the fact of social changes. Therefore, therefore, they are less demanding against themselves on the national level than against the developed countries on international level. It's because they are interested in preserving and enhancing the channels through which they can gain financial and other supports from the great powers. This is the very process and phenomena of compradorization, which I have already mentioned. For the same reason, these elites have tried to utilize the revolutionary power of their own populations. Therefore, as Amin said, quoting Mao Zedong, the revolution on the periphery could only be a national, popular, democratic, anti-feudal and anti-imperialist revolution run by the communists. So my fourth conclusion here is that the non-aligned movement can serve its original goals. It stubbornly presses on the primacy of the interests of the people in the development policies within its own member states as well, and clearly rejects the neoliberal agenda, both on national and international level. The third deficiency of NAM, but I would say, the lack of clear focus and actions. The topics discussed in the NAM meetings, the non-aligned movement meetings, are diverse, from poverty, from environment, but the discussions are not followed by actions. A frequent explanation to this problem is that the members of the NAM are very diverse themselves, and their relations are rich in conflicts. However, focusing on the self-reliance and the cooperation within the group, which would be the very interest of all developing countries, the deficiencies in other aspects could lose importance. Therefore, my fifth conclusion is that the non-aligned movement could be more efficient if it focuses on the fundamental problems of self-reliance and encourages the intra-group cooperation. I must mention here that during the previous sessions, I've put a lot of arguments which underpin these conclusions, and particularly this very conclusion, as it seems that there is a need of deeper cooperation between the member states, even within the non-aligned movement. The fourth deficiency is the fear of bloc building. The global south, or the third world, has an enormous potential is acting in unity. This strength has lost, together with the global changes and the concomitant differentiation of the members since the middle of the 70s. The unwillingness of most of the leaders of the non-aligned countries to change the world in favor of the peoples is reflected in the fact that they haven't constructed a strong and unified organization for the global south. It also applies to the group G77. These two enormous groupings didn't even didn't want to emerge in the last decades, although their membership considerably overlapped. Since 1994, they have a joint coordinating committee, but this is all. It's not nothing, but this is all at present. The developing countries have minuscule influence, I think, on the international fora is acting individually. I think it's evidence. Their only possibility to gain strength is to form a solid bloc. Therefore, my third conclusion is rejecting bloc building is the best strategy in a world where the exploiter nations have long built their own blocs and relating institutions like IMF, World Bank, European Union, G7, and so on, and even the United Nations. The next question of my presentation is whether the revolution will start on the periphery. In the last century, revolution took place in peripheral countries and usually began with the War of Independence. Although the victory of revolutions depended ultimately on the national class relations. This implies my seventh conclusion. The non-aligned movement might play an important role in the change of the world if it helps its members effectively to reach a real independence from the exploiter side. And last but not least, I would like to present some proposals for the non-aligned movement which can help a movement towards a better future. I would summarize this proposal that NAM must renew itself and shape a new anti-imperialist movement. The abbreviation would be the same. My proposals in keywords as follows. Enhancement of the scope of cooperation and solidarity. The movement must become truly tricontinental. Not only the non-aligned movement and the G77 should coordinate their work, but also other formations of the global south must be involved in this cooperation, like ECLAC, African Union, ECOWAS, and so on and so on. The potential in the cooperation with China must be discovered and exploited in exchange for the use of natural resources of the African, Asian, and Latin American countries. China should, and I think is ready, because China has demonstrated it many times, to have their industrial development, but we will see concerning what we will see if it is true from the presentation given by Peter and Alexander. Reinforcing solidarity regarding liberation of all oppressed nations, including the Palestinian people. And that should merge with social movement. That would be the best if this development took place. Reinforcing activity and adjusting it to the needs of the fight in the present form of the imperialism would mean alliance against neoliberalism, a creation of an action plan, an establishment of the legacy of the UN, or to build an alternative power because as we know, the UN got under the command of the United States and its allies, under the command of the imperialist triad, if I want to quote Sadrami, instead of representing the interest of the weaker nations, which would be its very task. Based on its own principles, the non-aligned movement must reject the use of military power of the center to regulate or even destroy whole countries, Iraq, Syria, Libya, and so on. And the non-aligned movement must work for the establishing
Professor Annamaria, your time is almost.
Yes, 1 minute more. Yes.
Okay.
I thank you very much.
Oh, please.
But it is the last slide of mine. So this one, the U.S. military base and work for a foundation of a new international political order, and must declare the primary importance of the pro-population development and work for the implementation of it also in its member states. And in the same spirit, the non-aligned movement must fight for the right of access to land to all peasants as equally as possible as China and Vietnam has already done, and for the food and the food production must be withdrawn from the mechanisms of market competition. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Annamaria. It was a very interesting presentation. You have a very important conclusion about the current state of the NAM movement, as well as propose important action to take in the future. So now the second speaker, my good friend Mukti Asikin. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Tulus.
You're welcome.
Good evening for everyone. I would like to share some perspective from the micro level after Professor Annamaria talking on the macro level on the geo-economic and some recommendation from Professor Ara. I think relevant with my presentation, how to strengthen the economic at a very, very micro level, meaning how to develop the cooperative at the rural area. I would like to share a screen to make easy my presentation. Well, wait a moment. Can you see it? Presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good.
It is the topic on the really micro level, how to develop the agriculture cooperative in rural area. The development of cooperative by government in rural Tanzania, also in other countries like Russia, Indonesia, Ghana, Vietnam, etc., are not economically successful. It is not easy to develop the cooperative in rural area. The study examined the development of cooperative in rural Israel and also in rural Indonesia. Based on the result of the qualitative study on Kibbutz Degania, this is 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I cannot updating the data because the situation of the pandemic. Actually, I had planned to go to Israel again, but unfortunately, the pandemic came in. And the other case study are the small cooperative village at the rural in Indonesia. Name is Cooperative in village KUD Bumijawa. Now we start with talking Kibbutz at the national level. The Kibbutz movement of Israel is the largest cooperative grouping in the world. The Kibbutz is unique rural cooperative. It is a melding of worker, consumer, producer, and financial cooperative. Kibbutz has entered 110 years ago since the first kibbutz already built. The name is Degania. Now the kibbutz number only 274, but it is amazing that kibbutz contribute about 48% of all agriculture production in Israel. Kibbutz, with only 2% of Israel population, account 12% of Israeli export. And the kibbutz principles are equality, solidarity, mutual responsibility, direct participating democracy and freedom, and people in the daily activities already familiar with the ideology is from each according to his ability to each according to their need. And this is one of the most power from the kibbutz that kibbutz can until now still sustain. And faced with the global economic crisis and local political pressure, kibbutz until now still continue to grow. This is the achievement that we can learn how other countries can also follow the strategy, the technique, the lesson learned from Israeli kibbutz. Now you can see that kibbutz in Israel as a cooperative at rural level already succeeds in transfer of the income source. And now about 82% income of the kibbutz come from the non-agricultural sector, like services, external work, industry, etc. So kibbutz succeeded in transforming their business from agriculture to other business. Now we move to the kibbutz at the village level. I choose Degania, the first kibbutz, as a case study. Degania was founded in 1910. This is the first kibbutz, the forerunner of the 274 kibbutzim. The young people, 8 young men and 2 young ladies, come together in the very underdeveloped area to build this first kibbutz, and the name is Degania. For the sake of idealism, maintaining a quality small group, this kibbutz then break kibbutzin within 3 kibbutz and names Degania Aleph, Degania Bet, and Degania Gimel. By 1947, the population of Degania Aleph is 380, and now is more than 500 members. Degania position themselves as family that is growing on organizations by motivation. And the sense of responsibility is reflected the practice of General Assembly. You can imagine that the General Assembly can be run every day in the beginning of period. And you know, the process of the decision making during the General Assembly, there is no voting decision, but only a consensus. Education is the main program and fully financed by the kibbutz from children to adult. And efficient living behavior is reflected in the low-cost consumption pattern. Working hard is the tradition, is the culture in the kibbutz, and members who work outside the kibbutz will bring income to the kibbutz, not only belong to he or to his. Kibbutz has been independent and does not depend on the external parties, including from government part. In the beginning, the government of Israel very supported to the kibbutz, but since 1970, there is no longer support from the government. Self-sufficient, good social financial condition have attracted new members. But however, nowadays it is not easy to become a new member of Kibbutz Degania, because before accepting new members, Degania want to make sure that the kibbutz can make them prosperous. Now we move to Indonesia. We try to see the very similar organization cooperative at the rural area, namely KUD, the Village Unit Cooperatives, that was initiated by the Indonesian government in 1978. In the early decades, KUD total 4,000 more units, and its peak before the 1990 economic crisis with the more than 9,000. This top-down, centralized, and fully instructed approach could be reaping the reward. In 1984, Indonesia succeeded in producing 25 million tons of rice. The KUD, the cooperative program, contributed to the success Indonesia's become rice self-sufficiency. And Indonesia received award from the FAO. Here's the picture that the President of Indonesia, Suharto, receiving the award from the FAO because in 1984, Indonesia succeeded in producing 25 million tons of rice and become the rice self-sufficiency. Now we try to see the KUD at the national level, but since the 1998 economic crisis and reduced government support, business has shrunk drastically. The number of KUD dropped dramatically to 6,000 units. And it is estimated that only 10% of them are still active. Most of the KUD now live from living various infrastructures like warehouse, etc., which is actually just given by the government previously. KUD members apparently not prosperous and default on the loan, about 8 trillion. The benefit of the presence of the KUD are mostly enjoyed by the elite. And entering 1998 reform era, the government left the KUD, and now the government introduced and implement the new program, Village Owned Enterprise. And the failure of the KUD was precisely due to top-down, over-sympathy, excessive government assistance with skill inner power. So now we are talking about the KUD at micro level. We choose one cooperative in one very small village. This is the case of the KUD Bumijawa that was founded in 1979 with 25 people. And in its golden age, member of KUD Bumijawa reaches 3,000 people. The business of KUD is like the KUD at national level. Rice milling, warehouse, shipping, fertilizer, etc. However, since the economic crisis and reduced government support, this cooperative at the village level has declined in terms of the business. By 2020, last year, number of KUD members is only 35 people. Imagine, in the beginning, already 3,000 people. And no one of this person pays membership fee. Business that's still running are leasing infrastructure, rising mill, etc. And the management was refreshed repeatedly, but still unable to restore this cooperative. Now this cooperative is managed by 2 staff who are not qualified and have low salary. They manage assets, imagine, about 5 billion, but only give profit of 7 million a year. Lesson learned. This is a closing remark of my presentation. We can learn from the Kibbutz principle and ideology that the Kibbutz go beyond that of many other cooperatives, even from the ICA, International Cooperative Alliance. Equality, solidarity, mutual responsibility, direct participasi demokrasi is a fundamental social capital for building agricultural cooperative in rural area. The main orientation of the Kibbutz service is to the members, people, society, not the economic. The initiation of forming agricultural cooperative in the village should be by the members and but respectively. I mean, not all people can ending easily, but we select that the people should have some good motivation, etc. Support program outside parties, especially by the government, can be provided, but in the spirit of self-reliance of right. Business innovation and transformation from agriculture to various other business become a safety valve and division of cooperative business. Last but not least, association role. Association play an important role in facilitating cooperation with members to make better the business case, policy advocacy, safety net, and building organization capacity. This is one experience that we can comparing the two situations in Indonesia and Israel with a very, very big gap. Then we can learn from the advantage in the Israel. And if we can develop some activities at the micro level, at the very, very rural, and boost the good condition on the economic, I think the recommendation from Professor Anna about the enhancement of the scope of cooperation and solidarity among the countries at the global lesson maybe can be achieved smoothly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mukti.
Tulus.
Yeah,
back to yours.
Very interesting topic about cooperative, and we know that cooperative is very important in Indonesia. I think also in many other non-aligned movement countries, especially in Africa and South Asia, but maybe also in Eastern European countries like in Hungary. And now we come to the third speaker. Is already here, Mr. Youcef Hamitouch. Mr. Youcef, please, floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning,
Professor Tulus.
You're welcome. Where is your face?
Thank you. Nice. Good morning for my colleagues. Nice to meet you. My thanks to the organizer who allows or gives me this opportunity to present my contribution. I think I am going to present my contribution in 25 minutes. Is it possible, Professor?
Yeah, 15 minutes.
I think so.
15
minutes.
5.
So,
please, Mr. Youcef, can we?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Youcef, can we see your face?
Yes.
It's very good to have speaker in transparent.
I don't know how to try many times.
Okay.
Try as many times I can't. I don't know how to.
Okay. Go ahead. Please.
I think we have lost Youcef. Youcef, can you hear me? You can rejoin to the Zoom meeting if you have technical problems. And also on the right hand corner down in the screen, you find the start video button.
Okay, so are we going for time being to Mr. Clemensit to save our time.
Yes.
Professor Annamaria,
Yes, I am here.
we don't have here, I think, a problem with Mr. Youcef, so we go first to the next speaker.
Yes, we can do that, of
Okay,
course.
please, please. Mr. Clemensit, I think floor is yours.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I try to share with you my presentation. Sorry. Can you see my presentation?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So, the title of my presentation is the effects of the Belt and Road Initiative on the ASEAN economies. This was a research project started in the second half of the last year with my colleague Alexandra Zoltai. And
Wait a minute, please.
Mr. Youcef, because you had problem cut the communication, so I give first to the next speaker. So you will come after Mr. Peter presentation. Is it okay with you? Mr. Peter, go ahead.
Okay. So this is a joint project with my colleague, and yes, let's see this research. So the purpose of this study was to present the relationship between China and the ASEAN countries in the light of the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. And to make this research interesting, we made a hypothesis that the Chinese project has a major impact on the economies of the ASEAN countries, which has also their economic dependence on China. And a few words about our research methods. We examined the economic relations of the ASEAN of these countries in the year 2012, before the BRI announced, and taking into account their external trade balance, the FDI, and looked at the same economic indicators of the 2018 figures, which allowed us to reject or statement or hypothesis. I know that to contain our research was not an easy process, because due to the elusiveness of the BRI, it's very difficult to measure the impact and dependence on the individual countries. And the issue for ASEAN member states' indebtedness to China should also be examined, but China doesn't issue data on this subject, so we don't have adequate resources. And moreover, I have to say that there are many other factors in the relationship between China and ASEAN countries, for example, geopolitical, political, and cultural dimensions, but in this project we only could focusing on the economic relationship, and of course we could lightly touch upon the political economic relations of the ASEAN countries and China with the US, Japan, and other foreign countries. So to continue my presentation, a few words about the China-ASEAN relations. The relationship can be divided into three stages. The initial hostile relationship was replaced by a fell-in-love era in the mid-1970s. And after that, close cooperation dominated the relations in the 1980s, 90s. But from 2010, economic interdependence increased, but the relationship became more complex due to geopolitical conflict. Sorry. And I can mention ASEAN-China dialogue, which was established in 1990. China became a full-fledged ASEAN dialogue partner, and the ASEAN-China summit. Maybe I can speak about ASEAN-China Center, which was formally established in November 2011, and the next milestone in relations was the 2013, when Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Indonesia, and the maritime Silk Road for the 21st century was announced. Okay, and let's see the economic and trade cooperation. The ASEAN-China framework agreement about economic cooperation entered in force in January 2010, and this launched the process of creating the ASEAN-China free trade area. And after that, some data you could see about the bilateral trade was increased in scope between ASEAN and China, and regarding the exports and the imports, we can also see this increase of this total trade. And we came to the conclusion that the ASEAN is one of the most important partner of China, and for the ASEAN also China is one of the most important economic partner. Considering investments, similar conclusions can be drawn. And for example, in 2019, this was the second time that ASEAN was the largest recipient of Chinese foreign investment. This is interesting to note. Then I would like to say a few words about the BRI and the 21st century maritime Silk Road. The BRI includes two mega projects. One of them is the Silk Road economic belt, and the other is the 21st century maritime Silk Road. The two schemes are inseparable, and the aim is the parallel implementation. The aim of this mega project is to revolutionize deep sea routes between Southeast Asia, China, Africa, and Europe, and put the participating countries on track of economic development with the help of the infrastructural developments along the coast. And I have to say that, in my opinion, in global sense, the maritime Silk Road has an even greater significance than the economic belt encompassing continents. Let's see this map about the BRI. We can see in brown the Silk Road economic one of the Silk Road economic belt, and with the white we can see 21st century maritime Silk Road. Okay, briefly about the Chinese strategy. Given the competition of China and the United States, strengthening of Chinese influence in the region is strengthened in economic and political terms alike. The concept of the new maritime Silk Road is to reopen, is to reassure the neighboring countries which feel threatened by the aggressive Chinese territorial demands in the South China Sea. And the interdependence may be a key to the future feasibility of the BRI. According to 2018 data, the investment in the region of Southeast Asia exceeded 740 billion US dollar. But there are Beijing sovereignty claims in the South China Sea, which made the relationship between ASEAN countries and China very complicated, and generated several tensions in the South China Sea area.
I think you have to round up because you have only some minutes left. Please round up because you have only a few minutes left.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. First of all, the relationship between Indonesia and China. You can see the main point in this slide, and I would like to only mention the main project which was commenced in Tanjung port, construction of multi-purpose terminal, and a container port has already been completed. And the president of Indonesia, President Jokowi, tried to make a global, to become Indonesia a global maritime fulcrum, and this is a similar concept that the Chinese started in this region. So I have to go. Jakarta Bandung speed railway and MNC Lido City is another project, and the next to Lake Toba there's a tourism district. And after that, I have no time to go into the details about the exports and imports, and total trade and FDI about in this connection. But we came to a conclusion that the economic interdependence is strengthened in the relationship of Indonesia and China. So the case of Malaysia, I think this is a similar process. The main points in the project, Malacca Gateway project, and Malaysia China Kuantan Industrial Park, and there are other important projects like the Forest City, and so Malaysia is a great supporter of this BRI. In the case of Myanmar, the Chao-Piju Special Economic Zone is one of the most important projects. And Yangon City projects also very interesting to see. The China, this is a part of the China-Myanmar economic corridor. Then I have to go to the other country, Thailand. Thailand is also a very active participant of the Chinese BRI project, and the import-export data show that the cooperation between the two countries is strengthened in the last years. And the Philippines case is very interesting. During the reign of President Rodrigo Duterte, the Philippines is one of the main supporter of this project. I can say a lot of projects related to the BRI, for example, the Khalifa Dam railway project, the Beyond the Intramuros, Panthéon bridges, and the Subic railway, and a lot of projects connected to the infrastructural development of the Philippines. Let's see, Vietnam. The political and economic relationship is not very harmonious with China.
Peter, may I suggest to you to go to the conclusions, because
yes, okay,
so thank you.
Okay. So it is not very important to see Cambodian, Laos, Singapore, Brunei, but which was the conclusion of our project. Our hypothesis has been proven, namely the BRI has a serious impact on the economies of the ASEAN countries, but led to the increase in their economic dependence on China. And data also show that there are significant differences between countries due to geographical, geostrategic, economic, and other reasons. So in mainland Southeast Asia, the economies of Cambodia, Myanmar are heavily dependent on China, but in Thailand, Vietnam, despite the growing position of China in the area and external trade and FDI, the efforts of the latter states between the major powers and preserve the distance from China is considered effective. In the case of Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines, their economic relations with China have shown and increasingly strong, manifested mainly in the volume of BRI and the shift in the external trade balance. In the case of Singapore, relations with China, this trend is also observed, while the benefits for the latter are more apparent than for the other countries. So that was my presentation, and I hope that you could understand my main conclusions. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clementis Peters. Now, not to waste our time, we go to the last speaker, Mr. Youcef. Are you still there?
Yes. You
Please,
listen
floor.
to me, please.
Yeah. We can listen.
You listen. You listen.
Yeah. Please, floor is.
Yes, sorry. Sorry, I have faced a problem in my camera. I can use it. It's impossible.
No problem. No
So
problem.
you are
Please,
going.
go ahead. Yeah. No problem. Go ahead.
Yes. Good morning. Yes. Good morning. Good morning, my colleagues. My contribution is about the Sino-French economic competition of Algeria. The presentation will focus on the development of economic and trade ties between Algeria and China at various periods, with particular focus on the last 2 decades. The study will rely on relevant data and statistics provided by specialists. The question: what are stakes of Chinese interests in Algeria? What is the position of France toward Chinese economic involvement in Algeria? What is the nature of economic and trade relation between Algeria and China on the hand, and with France on the other hand? At first, I am going to deal with France and Algeria relations. Since independence of Algeria in July 1662, Algeria has established a special relationship with France due to historical, cultural, economic, and political factors. The Algerian economy and trade depended on French economy. More than 50% of foreign Algerian trade was oriented to France. Algeria imported from this country machines, cars, pharmaceutical materials, etc. Culturally, the French language is rooted in Algerian society. It is the language of communication besides Arabic, and it is the working language in administration, economy, mass media, and university teaching. Algeria is the largest French-speaking country after France, although it is not a member of Francophonie, an organization that regroups all the French-speaking countries under the banner of Paris. According to the French newspaper Liberation, a third of the Algerian population can read, write, and etc. Then, in addition, in 2003, Algeria signed Euro-Mediterranean Association contract with the European Union, which has been more benefit for European companies, particularly French companies. In return, it has reached its limit for Algerian economy. You hear me, please, sir? Sir, Thomas. Yes, vous m'entendez? You listen me. You listen.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yes.
I continue.
Yeah, continue, please. Continue.
Okay. So, yes, thank you. Concerning China, roots of China's second part concerns roots of Chinese interest to Algeria. Here, China interest in North Africa came back. It's impossible to understand the economic fight without coming back to political fight. China interest in North Africa came back to 1950s at Bordeaux Conference in April 1955. The Chinese leaders expressed their opposition to the colonialism in general, particularly French colonialism. China supported Algerian liberation movement against French colonialism. Meanwhile, China promoted the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence and imperialism. Then, China's interest to Algeria is due to many factors. Algeria is situated at the heart of the Mediterranean region. It represented a gateway between Africa and Europe and has frontier with 7 countries. Its strategic location represents an advantage for Chinese investors with regards to transportation costs to Europe and Africa, and also represents an advantage for and China policy is based on enhancing its position in area and seeks to make Algeria as an important political ally, a trade partner, and source of investments, as well as Algeria provides China many opportunities like raw materials, petrol, which needs for its economic development. Then North Africa, including Algeria, represents a big market of 100 million Chinese company. Then we have also, after independence of Algeria, the political relation between China and Algeria intensified during the 1960s and 1970s. The 2 countries expressed their opposition to imperialism. They cooperated and exchanged advices about international issues. and they shared the revolutionary ideology. And also, geopolitical aspects of Algeria. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Then, diplomatically, China replaced Taiwan in the Security Council in 1971, thanks to Algerian diplomacy in the United Nations Organization, the non-aligned movement. Then the political relation between the two countries developed in 1982 when they established the Mixed Commission for Economic, Trade, and Technical Cooperation. Meanwhile, in the 1980s, China followed an open-up policy to the world, including Algeria, with a more pragmatic and win-win approach based on economic priorities at the expense to the determinant of religious ideology. Then we have in April 1996, while the Western countries exercised and declared diplomatic embargo on Algeria, China and Algeria signed an agreement on holding regular political consultation, which represented an alternative to the partnership with Western countries. In February 2004, the Chinese President He Jintao visited Algeria and discussed with Algerian President. Then during Sino-African Forum Summit held in Beijing in 2006, the two countries signed a declaration on strategic partnership and cooperation. In April 2015, the Algerian Prime Minister Algeria signed 15 new memorandum of understanding during its visit to China. Then we have the third part. We have if Algerian government had counted on Chinese companies in economic fight to achieve housing project for providing them to the people at relative low cost. Furthermore, China obtained a contract worth over $7 billion for the construction of 1,300 kilometer motorway or highway that extends from the border with Morocco, the western of Algeria, to the frontier with Tunisia in the east. Similarly, China also obtained the project North-South Trans-Saharan Highway of 3,000 kilometers from Algeria to Nigeria. In the telecommunication sector, China was represented by the Chinese companies Huawei and ZTE. In strategy of the Belt and Maritime Routes, China signed an agreement with Algeria worth over $4 billion to build a huge important port of Hamdaniya in Chechnya near Algeria, and also in order to transport and merchandise routes to Europe, ports and beyond. Then, in sum, China economic and investment in Algeria was due to the booming financial resource Algeria earned from the increase of oil prices in the world energy market. Concerning Chinese investment, Algeria received, if you like, $3 billion, which represents 7.3% of Chinese investments in Africa, so the third after South Africa and Democratic Republic of Congo. I have, if you like, statistics that I can show to my colleagues. Then concerning Sino-Algerian trade, 2 decades before, Algerian trade was concentrated with European countries, France, Italy, but particularly with France, and which constituted top partnership to Algeria, whereas China's foreign trade with Algeria was insignificant. Since 2000, commercial relations between China and Algeria have grown exponentially. Indeed, in 2011, China represented the second trade partnership of Algeria behind France, with $5 billion exports, and China imported over $3 billion, with an increase of 85%. Then, and in 2012 and 13, it became the first partnership of Algeria with $7 billion, so overtaking traditional Algerian partnership, France. These statistics, we have also statistics which indicates growth of relations between China and Algeria. The last part concerns here the rivalry. After 2000, China intensified its presence in Africa in general and Algeria in particular, and began to challenge French presence and interest in African continent in economic, political, and cultural fights, including Algeria. The President of European Parliament, Antonio Tajani, considers the extension of Chinese influence in the continent, particularly in North Africa, as a threat to European interests by asserting that Africa is now risking becoming a Chinese colony. But the Chinese want only raw material stability, those interest them. Concerning North Africa and Algeria, the OCDE countries faced over, it means European Union, faced over the past 15 years a decline of their trade with new actors represented by emerging countries, especially China. France is the European country whose position in North Africa and particularly in Algeria had declined most because of the fierce competition represented by China.
Sir,
economic and trade business of
Mr. Youcef, you have only 4 to 5 minutes left. Please.
Yes, okay. I am going to finish. Okay. France is the European country whose position of Africa had declined most because of fierce competition by China. Economic and trade presence of China in North Africa accelerated in early 2000, and its trade volume with this region had tripled between 2003 and 2013 due to competitiveness of Chinese goods and services. Also, despite the visit of a delegation of French businessmen led by the former Prime Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault to Algeria in December 2013, many projects with French companies were not concluded. On the contrary, many projects in Algeria were obtained by Chinese firms during the visit of a group of Chinese entrepreneurs to Algeria on a few days after the visit of the French delegation. Then the Algerian strategic shift to Algeria began in 2012 after the attack carried out by a group of terrorists against the gas land of Tigan near Algeria in the border with Libya. Most Algerian gas fields where Western companies, including French firms, were operating. These companies seized this occasion to exercise blackmail on Algeria in order to obtain lower prices for the gas in return for continuing exploration in this country. In this situation, China offered assistance to Algeria by proposing contact in the fight of exploration and in the construction sector. Furthermore, 50 Chinese companies that were in competition with French firms or companies won contract worth $20 billion for the construction of projects in building and construction sectors. France sees China's presence in Algeria with suspicion, since the presence represents a threat to French interests and might turn in China into one of the most privileged partnerships of Algeria's future. The French Minister Nicolas Bric called Algerian authorities for equality and transparent competition when dealing with Algeria. For this part, the Foreign Minister of China, Wang Li, expressed his country's pride to enjoy a good partnership with Algeria and declared that China intends to invest $50 billion in this country in the future decades, etc. So here, Algeria adopted a policy with China which doesn't evoke matters of democracy, human rights, issues upon which France insisted when dealing with Algeria. This country wanted also to reduce its economic dependence on France. In this context of the intensification of relations between Algeria and China, which has become the first supplier of Algeria, France wanted to redeploy politically, economically, and culturally in this country in order to regain its leading position. Here, during his visit to Algeria in December, the French President François Hollande
I think you have to finish your presentation.
To revive the French Algerian friendship. So I stop here. I hope that you appreciate my contribution.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tom.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we had already 4 speakers. Professor Annamaria.
Yes, I am here.
How is the time?
How
many minutes left?
15 minutes we have left. We have to finish.
Okay. So we open the discussions. Let me start with 2 questions. One for Professor Annamaria and the second for Mr. Mukti. Let me start first with Annamaria. You made very interesting conclusions. One of your points in your conclusion is about conflicts among some member states. I think you mentioned China with India, and also maybe certainly India with Pakistan, and even among few countries in the Middle East. I don't know, but I think this is very difficult to solve. Don't you think so, Professor? How we solve this problem? Maybe China and India is okay. That's only border small border local wars. But Pakistan with India on Kashmir, and there's more political and even historical involved in that issues. How you solve? How we can solve that problem?
It's a good question. I am not a politician. Of course, I think that it depends on the class content of governments if they want to solve such kind of border conflicts. As far as I know, Mao presented a modus vivendi to this problem, which Nehru didn't accept in 1928. There would be a change of territories, and so I think that would be good, because it would be equally beneficial for both countries, and the interest of China and India were taken into consideration. But I think it is the question of domestic politics. So till a government or a prime minister feels that he or it is not enough strong to explain their decisions to the population, then they will be afraid of the echo from the population, and therefore they will not allow this will not allow them to release some part of the country in exchange for a domination for over another kind of thing. So I think it is the question of will, and will is determined by the class content, because this nationalism is usually strongly connected to the domestic capitalist class.
Yeah, but certainly this is a long-term solution, yeah, Professor. Also in conflict in Yemen, for instance, and we have now 2 blocks in Middle East, Saudi Arabia in one group, and Turkey and other in the other group. The number of countries involved in conflicts, I mean the number of member countries in this non-aligned movement, which are in conflict now, become larger than just say 20 years ago or so.
Yes, I know. Therefore, I know that my proposals are mostly wishful thinking, but it is said that we have to have positive utopias, which we have to follow. And I also mentioned that the non-aligned movement countries, leaders, government should have
certainly, yeah.
With the NGO, with the civil organizations, but of course they don't do because there is a rupture within the society. Okay, that's so I don't believe in that the government, but well, it can be, because look at Latin America. When once Chávez came, he was able to initiate a continental cooperation based on the principle of the interest of the people. Okay, until now it was not successful, but
that is indeed interesting to to find out what is the difference between Latin America and in Africa or in Middle East, yeah, for that in that respect.
Yes.
What are the main factors make them different? Yeah.
Yes, of course.
That is very good. Yeah, that is very good for potential study or even for PhD research.
Yes, you are right. I agree. Thank you for your comment.
Okay, so it's very interesting. Mr. Mukti, you know, like yesterday we discussed, there has been no concrete actions in this, I mean collaboration action or activities in this non-aligned movement. Now you are talking about cooperative. Do we have cooperative collaboration among some members countries?
Yes, actually,
Indonesian, yeah. Do we have?
Actually, we have the umbrella, namely International Cooperative Alliance.
Oh, but that is more
umbrella
yeah, but that is more including developed countries, yeah, US and so on.
Yes,
but
yes.
I mean,
for example,
yeah.
For example, even Indonesia and Israel have no official relation, but in terms of a cooperative economic, in terms of the activity at the macro level, through the umbrella of the ICA, International Cooperative Alliance, we can meet together, we can doing some activities together, we can exchange the technology, we can exchange access to market, etc. This is the good foundation.
Okay, but does it already take place?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I myself already also exported some briquettes from Indonesia to Israel, for example.
Oh, from Indonesia Cooperative.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's one example. But of course, we like to see more broadened collaboration.
Exactly.
Between cooperatives in African countries with South Asian countries, or Indonesian cooperative with Indian cooperative, or so.
Exactly.
Okay. We still have time, maybe around 10 minutes for other participants for questions.
I have a question to Mukti Asikin. I understood that you collected the requirements for the success of cooperative, but I wonder. I am afraid I haven't got an answer to the question: why was it successful in to fulfill these requirements in Israel, and why hasn't it succeeded in Indonesia? What do you think about that?
Yes, there is a different approach. In Indonesia, the government tried to push to develop in the massive program cooperative at the rural area. So all program, all money, even policy, and even people who will manage the cooperative decided coming from the government. So there is no initiative from the bottom level.
Sorry. Wait a minute, please. Okay, that was a bad sound. I wanted to ask Tulus to switch off his microphone, but it's fixed now. Thank you. Please continue.
Yes. So there is a big difference that our government delivered this program.
Coming from Youcef. Okay, then it's coming from Youcef. Please switch off your microphone, please, if you don't speak. Switch.
Yeah.
Okay.
So our recommendation is how to develop the rural cooperative through how to initiate this institution by the member of the cooperative, by the people from the bottom level, not to the top-up approach. top-down approach are costly. Top-down approach are maybe will kill the power of the people at the rural level to create some innovation, some different activities, some different way. But by pushing the initiative from bottom level, then the government can just apply at the rule of the game, how to develop the conducive environment, not directly to dictate it. The cooperative, the people at the very, very operational level. So we have to differentiate.
Mr. Mukti,
the role of the government to, yes.
In Indonesia, it's very, government intervention is very intensive, yeah, in cooperative movement. Even we call a political-based cooperative in Indonesia. How in Israel?
In Israel,
100% private.
Israel since 1970, the government of Israel do nothing to the cooperative development.
So I think that is the reason.
But blessing in this case, then the cooperative in Israel then develop and then growing in a very innovative way. They are not depend on the external parties like the big companies, like the government, etc. They are really develop the cooperative based on their power, based on their initiative, based on their what they call it, creativities, and already more than 100 years they still exist.
Yeah, because from literature, I know that they say fully private-based cooperative can be very successful compared to government-initiated or sponsored cooperative like in Indonesia. Because back to Annamaria, in Indonesia, cooperative is very political sensitive issue. It is in our independence constitution that Indonesia should be moved based on cooperative way. So it's very, very political, how you call it, sensitive. That's why that is the problem we have.
I think I look at this problem from another angle. We have had in our history this problem of organizing cooperatives, and it was initiated from top, and it resulted conflicts. However, it was at the end very successful. The Hungarian agriculture was one of the best in Europe. It's not the situation now, but it was, and it was because, as I see it was because it was fit in an economic planning. I know that's not very popular now in Europe because of this neoliberal course. Nonetheless, it was very successful because it was based on an industrialization, which was also very difficult and contradicting, but nonetheless happened. And the industry could serve equipment, industrial equipment to the cooperatives, and also the cooperatives could serve raw materials to the industry. So it was fit into a global national developmental planning.
But how is the intervention of the government? Is that intensive or?
It was forced by the government, I must say.
Forced by the government.
Yes,
it's very interesting.
It caused problems. Well, I look at the history, not only from a moral point of view, because if you look at morally, you cannot speak anything about the history, which development was beneficial for the population, which was dangerous for them. Because sometimes when you want to change, even in your family, think of that. You cannot be democratic, you have to push for that. And so maybe you find this analogy very fun from the historical situation. Nonetheless, I would say that it was forced, and at the end, it was successful. Of course, forcing cooperatives not enough. You have to convince people, and you have to offer them things for after which they will understand that this direction is good. And it was successful in Hungary. What do you think, Peter Clemesic? Do you agree? Yes, but
your microphone.
Microphone.
Peter, your microphone.
Yeah, okay. I agree with Annamaria in this subject. Yes.
I am very glad. So I am not lying then.
You got supporter, you got sponsor.
I think the conclusion here is that it's not enough to force or inspire establishment cooperatives. The state must help them broadly and must help them to be integrated into the economy and to get help from the economy as well. And this is industrialization and planning. This is one of my favorite topic.
I think we have to round up. Do you think so? Or maybe still one at least one questions, Otherwise, we can end up. Professor Annamaria.
Thank you very much. I would have had a lot of questions, but we have to finish the next section.
We have to finish.
I would like to thank all of you because it was interesting. I know that it's 15 minutes is so short.
I'm from the technical team. You can speak a little bit longer if you want because it's lunch break for us. So it's 1 hour and a half break. So you have time if you want to.
Very nice mode. And
we are also hungry.
I'm kind of hungry, but you can discuss. It's okay.
I have dinner and you have lunch.
But we also have to prepare, the summary.
Yeah.
And therefore, we need some time. Nonetheless, I would say that this increasing of influence of China in the ASEAN countries, and also in Algeria, I think is a very important point in the concerning the question of the change of the world, because I think that we are in the transformation of the world hierarchy, and it will be decided between the imperialist core led by the United States and between the groupings which will be led by China. And therefore, it's not a question, again, just look at this from above. It's not the question of the national sovereignty, which is, of course, important, but from the point of view of the future of the globe, not all national sovereignty is important. Think of the United States. It is important to allow them, the elite of the United States to use the so-called national sovereignty for behaving as an imperialist ruler of the world. No, it's not a part of the national sovereignty, and the world don't have to accept that kind of national sovereignty. So this is one thing. And the other thing is that the growing influence of China can be acceptable only on the basis if it helps this country's economic development. And it was not the case with the imperialist influences in Africa and Latin America, but it can be in the case of China. As far as I know that there's a lot of articles concerning the imperialism of China, and in some aspect it can be true in as much they drain some extra labor from that countries and also natural resources. But on the other hand, whenever I look at closely to these projects between China and other countries, I always find some kind of development project as well. And it is not true for the policy of the imperialist central, as far as I know. But you can discuss, you can debate.
No, but in Indonesia, the issue of China has become a political sensitive debate, especially with respect to investment and our dependency on imports, because we import almost all necessary goods from China, because of course the prices are very cheap, cheaper than even our local production. So it has become a political debate right now, including do we need that railway speeding train Jakarta-Bandung, for instance? Do we really need that, or other even mining project in, I think in Sulawesi, yeah, Mr. Mukti, China also involved, and they brought many workers from China mainland to Indonesia to fix that factory in Sulawesi, and it was a strong debate about questions why they brought their own peoples, more than 200. Yeah, I remember arrived in Sulawesi, and when they were asked by the reporter, they said no, we only fix the factory and then we will go home again. But I don't know whether they already went back or still in Sulawesi. So the expansion of China in Indonesia in the past 5 to 10 years become more intense. Indonesia need to compensate this development by inviting also other investors from other countries as well.
Okay, but I think it also depends on the government. One must negotiate with China as well when letting in their investments, and it is the same for.
Yeah, but you know, frankly, the position of our government, in particular, and countries in general, is in this time is weak compared to what China has. China has almost everything, capital, technology, and so on. So we don't have so strong position right now in do bargaining with China, unfortunately.
But you have
only natural
labor market, for example, and if they want to use.
Yeah, but you know what I understand from reading many papers, even the real wage in China is still lower than in Indonesia. Although we thought Indonesia has one advantage in wages, but it is not true. In China, it's much lower than in Indonesia. So we have a huge market, but a huge market for 260 million people compared to more than 1 billion people in China. It's not our advantage in that respect. So only one advantage we still have is natural resources. That is China need very much. That's the only bargaining power.
Yes.
And I think also why China go to Africa and Southeast Asia, South Asia like India and so, because of raw material.
Yes, definitely, and it's true that this is a problem, a threat to the independence of these countries. Nonetheless, I think China is not that kind of imperialist power as the United Nations. It's not United Nations, it's a United States. Which doesn't mean that all countries must accept.
Yeah, but you know, we have problem. Although it's maybe rather out of our focus, but we have now problem in South China Sea, and ASEAN cannot as one group against China in this debate, because Laos, PDR, and especially Laos, because very small, locked country, 100% depend on China. And the next is Cambodia. And those two are the bottleneck in ASEAN to have one stand against China in the South China Sea. How can ASEAN say to China, no further in this Southeast China Sea if ASEAN cannot make one point together against China, because we have Laos and Cambodia always pro-China in whenever we talk about China problem in the ASEAN meeting.
Well, okay. I think it's really time to close. At least I have to leave now.
Always interesting if always interesting if we only we start with the political debate than other debate.
Thank you very much.
You will close.
Thank you.
You will close, Professor Annamaria.
Oh, well, I just want to say thank you to all of us, and I am very curious if I can read your presentations, maybe in the form of a journal article, or probably within the book, which is planned by Darwish Kudori, and I inspire you to finish this and deliver it to be published in that conference book. Thank you very much for your coming.
Okay. Also, I will,
Thank you.
Yeah, I will give my thanks to everybody, especially the presenters, Mr. Clement Sitz, Peter, Mukti, Asikin, and Professor Annamaria, and also to Mr. Youcef, and also to participants. Here we have Enrico, Guenaile, Martin Luik, and Reclot Alexandre, and Diana, and also to our technician, student of Dr. Darwish, Mrs. Maud Lapeira. Thank you for all of you, and have a good lunch for you in Europe and dinner for us in Asia.
Yes. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Annamaria, I will send right away by summary.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.